see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guess any.
What are we talking about? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go! I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm getting pretty close. Welcome back to another episode of the Cheap Seats podcast. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak, and in the upper left corner, I got the Prince of Production for Sports Empire Network, Kyle Edwards. How you feeling, Kyle?
I'm good. I mean, feeling better than my team right now, but, you know, it is what it is. But back for another Cheap Seats episode with you guys, so can't complain.
Are you a man? Are you 40?
Not there yet, but
I'm a man. I'm 40. I love that. I love that. Upper right corner, I got my man CR Media, my man Chase. The only one where his football team did not lose this weekend. The Chiefs got a W on Thursday night. Not a clean one, like 19-8, whatever that weird score was. Was that a scoregami? It might have been close. But Chase, how you feeling, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's on to the next week. So on to the next week.
On to the next one, right?
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
We got a lot to get into tonight. We got 4 solid debate topics. The first one we're going to get into is kind of like for the moment, right? Like we try to take something that happens either over the weekend or last week or this weekend that's prevalent. And the first one I want to get into is the best don't poke the bear scenario in honor of Orlando Arcia poking the bear that is Bryce Harper, and Bryce Harper going absolutely ballistic in Game 3, hitting 2 bombs, including Nick Castellanos hit 2. The stare downs were incredible. The 3-run homer that really kind of gave the Phillies that big lead that they didn't look back from was the big home run of and then in Game 4, they just didn't even pitch to him. But Philadelphia Phillies once again eliminate the Atlanta Braves, but it got us thinking, right? And yeah, I'll be honest. I'll be completely frank with you guys. I was actually feeling bad for Arcia. Like after the Game 3 thing, and you know, he had this whole, like everyone's asking him in the locker room, he looked like a dejected puppy. I felt bad for him. Genuinely felt bad for him. Like, man, he was excited after a win. It's not that big of a deal. And then Game 4 happens, and Austin Riley hits a home run, and the Braves go up 1-0. And he gets in an argument with a 12-year-old that's behind him in the stands. And he's like taunting him, like, you don't have a ring. I have a ring. You're a loser, to a 12-year-old. So I lost any compassion that I had for the man after that. So my question to you guys would be, what is your favorite don't poke the bear moment where somebody said something, bulletin board material, and it really got sent back to them? Like I can think of one that none of you guys will say, but I don't. Any of you guys ever watched The Challenge, MTV The Challenge, like the Big Brother? And I remember when Jordan flipped over all the handles to go into elimination versus Johnny Bananas, and Bananas sent him packing. Don't poke the bear. I don't want to steal any of yours. I mean, obviously, there's one that happened just recently in the NBA playoffs, but I don't want to give any away. So what I will do is I will pass the rock figuratively and literally to my man Kyle Edwards to give us his don't poke the bear moment.
I mean, it's going to be kind of a local thing with my Celtics. There was a playoff series where I believe Giannis had a big bucket over Al Horford, did like a stare down to him, and Al Horford kind of gave him the look like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing now. And I think it was like literally the next possession down, Horford drove to the hoop, dunked over Giannis, started flexing to the crowd. And it was like that moment where we kind of saw Horford sort of turn up a little bit. Because, Horford's kind of a mild-mannered guy. He doesn't really get into a lot of back and forth. But, with the history with the Celtics and the Bucks recently, they've had a really great playoff series. So that's one that does come to mind like right away. Another one would probably be like maybe the Patriots when they had their, revenge tour. A lot of stuff about their dealings on the sideline and stuff like that seemed to set off Tom Brady in general. Well, kind of the way that he was kind of made out to be the bad guy and everything. And he had like Robert Kraft and Belichick, and a lot of people thought like they were putting it on Tom Brady as well. And he went out and kind of lit up the league. So, we don't know that Tom Brady's that kind of guy. He looks for every little thing to kind of push him, which I always loved about him. But, those are the two that came to mind for me.
How'd that season end for you guys?
Don't worry about that. We're not talking about that.
He was like, my favorite one is with the Tom Brady revenge tour.
Everything up until that final week was great to watch. That's what I'm holding my hat on. For me, the Super Bowl that year never happened.
That's fair. There's a lot of great don't poke the bear moments. I am going to go to Chase next because I have like 3 or 4, and I'd rather not take one of his. Oh, man. Look, Chase, you got so many people on the Twitch side of things talking to you.
I see that. I appreciate I went ahead and connected my Twitch. I haven't streamed on there in a while, so I was like, we'll see what happens here. Obviously, mine is gonna be Burrowhead.
That's a great one. Great one.
Burrowhead and a paternity test to see if Joe Burrow is Patrick Mahomes' daddy. It worked out extremely well for the Cincinnati Bengals. It worked out even better for the Cincinnati mayor. And in the words of a great Arizona Cardinals coach, they are who we thought they were. So, yeah, much love to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm very excited to see that they've planted their 2 feet this season. So
I would like to say one of mine is going to be on December 3rd when the Philadelphia Eagles play the San Francisco 49ers, because I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, but the hatred that I've developed for the 49ers since they lost the NFC Championship game, and all the comments, the Deebo Samuels, the Brandon Ayuk's, the George Kittles, the Christian McCaffreys, the Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa had a really good poke the bear comment where he said, Jordan Mailata, he's just big. He's not really anything special. And Jordan Mailata absolutely pancaked him. But I want to send a shot back at my man Kyle. Kyle, listen, I love you. But there's no surprise I dislike Boston sports. And I think a great poke the bear moment happened. 2 poke the bear moments happened in this playoffs. These playoffs, one of them obviously was Dylan Brooks poking the bear with LeBron James. We all heard about that. We saw that all over the news. I thought that was the low-hanging fruit. That's why I left that out there. But the other one that doesn't get talked about nearly as much is the Grant Williams poking the bear and Jimmy Butler. They get up. Oh, stop it, Kyle. They got up 12 points. He's in his face. He goes head to head with them. They evaporate a 12-point lead in the Garden to beat Boston and absolutely run through them. What was it, 5 games? I mean, it wasn't really a series. It was 6, right?
7.
6. Oh, it went to 7?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was 3-0, and then Boston won the next 3, and then they went up to Boston and absolutely took their hearts out again. And that's okay. But Grant Williams poking the Jimmy Butler bear, that's one. How about, let's go back to 1991 with Dennis Rodman poking Scottie Pippen and Michael Jeffrey Jordan in a 1991 playoffs. So there's a lot of poke the bear moments that we can look at. I will point at those. Obviously, the Harper one is super fun for me. But that's, what started this. Orlando Arcia wanted to run his mouth about Harper making a play and getting doubled up at first base, and they didn't see the lead for the rest of the series after that comment. In fact, the Atlanta Braves, a team that won 104 regular season games, only led in this series for 2 total innings, one of them being the 9th of game 2. Listen, that's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. So out of the ones that we named, like if you had to pick a secondary one, a one that you liked that somebody else said that you might have forgot, I love that Chase took it back to Burrowhead. I couldn't believe the things that were coming out of Cincinnati for that playoff game. I'm like, you guys have never won a Super Bowl. This guy's already won one. You can't be saying comments like this. Now, granted, at the time they were 3-0 versus the Chiefs, but 3-0 isn't 10 games. You didn't win 7 straight games. You haven't won back-to-back Super Bowls. Like Tom Brady had a moment where he could say, I'm Peyton Manning's daddy back in the early 2000s when he beat him in the AFC Championship twice in a row. Like maybe that situation you can start talking about it. But I felt like that was so premature for Cincinnati. I felt like they were still underdogs in the game. I didn't understand the thought process of poking the bear in Arrowhead. And I don't understand giving teams bulletin board material when it's unneeded.
True.
Thoughts?
Agreed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will say the Grant Williams one was kind of, I mean, look, it was just, Grant is a guy who kind of just does his own thing at times. I kind of understood where he was coming from because the Celtics were kind of playing lethargic, and he just wanted to kind of strike up some type of something with him.
Bro, this is not accurate at all. This is not accurate at all. They were up 12 points when he did it. They were not playing lethargic at all. What happened was he poked Jimmy Butler, woke him up, and then the Celtics started playing lethargic. It was like exact opposite of what you're saying. He cost you game 1, 100%. No doubt in my mind.
I thought that was like game 2 or something that he did that.
Game 2. It might have been game 2. But he cost you that game, whatever that game was.
Well, I mean, the way the series was going, wasn't looking that great anyway.
After dropping game 1, the Celtics were home and in desperate need of a win. They were 9 points ahead with fewer than 7 minutes left on the clock when Williams and Butler started back and forth. After a 3-pointer, Williams appeared to say something to Butler. On the next Heat possession, Butler finished a jumper while drawing a foul on Williams, and immediately after the bucket, Butler turned to bark back at Williams, who refused to retreat. Face-to-face, the two screamed at each other for a second. Eric Spoelstra shrugged it off the impact of the moment, pointing out the gnarly version, but that's fine. That's not the point. They were up 12 points, and Grant Williams started yapping. Jimmy Butler got an N1, and the first thing that came in his mind was, I'm going right back at Grant Williams. They lost the game up 12 points with 6.5 to go. He woke him up. That's what it is. That's all there is to it. You weren't lethargic when you were up 12.
Because I'm trying to think, because I thought it was game 1 when I think Miami stole game 1, and Butler had the thing where he did the little timeout thing looking at Al Horford.
That's fair.
So I thought that was kind of to respond to that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it wasn't the smart thing to do. Then again, he's now a former Boston Celtic, so out of sight, out of mind to me.
People say that's why he. People say that's why he left.
He left because he wants to be a starter or something. That's never going to happen in Boston. Like, you can forget that. I don't even know if that's going to happen in Dallas, but yeah, we'll see. He just wanted a bigger role. He was never going to get that.
Lance Stevenson, LeBron James.
That's fair. LeBron's got a lot of them. Draymond Green, LeBron James in 2016 when he kicked him in the nuts, and then Draymond got suspended, and LeBron came back to win 3 straight games to win the NBA Finals for the Cavaliers, which created probably the greatest super team ever in the 2017-2018 Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
It's a lot of them.
Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear.
Lance is a weird guy.
I mean, he knew what he was doing, but it just, I mean, arguably the greatest player in basketball at that time, and you're not on that level, you know. But that was definitely a poke in the bear moment. What about Rex Ryan?
Let me give you context of this. I loved what Rex Ryan did for the New York Jets.
Absolutely.
I'm going to explain this to you real quick. Rex Ryan put all the onus on him and none on his team. And Rex Ryan won football games versus New England, which no other Jets coach can seem to do. If we're being honest with ourselves, Rex Ryan won a playoff game at Gillette. I think they were like 14-point underdogs in the game or 10-point underdogs in the game. They had no business winning that
something
game.
like 10, yeah.
So, like, he put all the onus on himself. I remember the press conference. They had the best Hard Knocks ever. It was when Rex Ryan Jets, when he went up there and he was just like, look, they have the better coach. That's about it. You guys are all better than every single the Jets are better than the Patriots. The only thing they're better than us is coaching. They have the better coach. So he put all the onus on himself, which I love that. Now, Julian Edelman's response was hilarious. The foot in the mouth thing, and kept making references to feet because the Rex Ryan foot fetish thing that came out. Yeah. That was hilarious. I will say this. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram looking like absolute bozos versus Minnesota in the Minneapolis Miracle. I know it's not a poke the bear type moment, but man, those guys were on the sideline celebrating, taunting fans, and then Diggs goes down the sidelines for that touchdown. And that was hilarious. And then they spent the whole offseason. This is another team. I don't know what – you guys are going to help me out here. I don't understand it. Maybe it's me. But why do teams spend the whole offseason talking about other teams that won? That was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And Ingram and Kamara are talking and saying, well, if we would have beat Minnesota, we were going to roll through Philadelphia. We had no doubt that we were going to roll through Philadelphia. That's our Super Bowl and blah, 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 blah. The Minneapolis Miracle, that we're one miracle away from a Super Bowl ring. When in reality, the New Orleans Saints, after the one Super Bowl that they won, couldn't get out of their own way. Now, granted, the Bradley Roby non-PI call versus the Rams and the Saints, that's not their fault. But they couldn't get out of their way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a sign of fan bases that aren't used to like a sustained track record of winning, that when they do finally get to that place where they feel like they have a shot, and if they lose, then they got to try to justify what happened or make an excuse or something like that. Because that kind of goes to the Cincinnati thing. Cincinnati's been terrible for so long. And now that they finally have Joe Burrow, where it's like, you know, this guy's pretty good. Maybe he could do what Carson Palmer couldn't do, or whoever, Boomer Esiason, I don't know, and win us one. And since they went to the Super Bowl, lost, so now they feel like we're right there. Now we'll just have to see if Burrow can actually get them over the hump, which at that point, Bengals fans may become insufferable. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think they're going to constantly be that way until they probably eventually win it. They'll always say, they'll always go to the Chiefs because the Chiefs are the team that everybody's chasing. And when you're the team that's being chased, a lot of people are going to try to, downgrade what you do or how good you are because that makes them feel better about their team.
I hear you. What about LeBron James and Bosch's sister? Do you guys remember that game?
I don't remember that one.
No? So LeBron was playing at Toronto and Chris Bosch was still on Toronto. And if you don't remember the game, he essentially had, like, they were losing. The Toronto Raptors were winning the basketball game. And Bosch's sister and I think his wife were taunting LeBron James. And he was at the free throw line. He looked at him. He acknowledged him. And then he went off to score like 11 points in the next minute and a half and then rolled the ball to them and said, you can talk to Toronto. You lost them this game. It was a really fun moment. I don't know. It was a regular season game. It wasn't that serious, but it was a great moment. If you haven't seen it, it's really cool. Worth a watch.
The Kobe and the Knicks, where Shu told that story that Dad Trainer's talking about in the comments. I don't really call that a poking the bear kind of thing. I mean,
Mon Shumpert. That was a Mon Shumpert.
Yeah, where Shump talks about it, but I don't really call it a poking the bear kind of thing. I kind of consider that just Kobe kind of a little bit of arrogancy, not poking the bear, just like Shump says. He looks at me and says, "Hey kid, you had a great game." And then destroys.
Some next level stuff after that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's question 1. Let's move to question 2. Kyle, I'll pass the rock. Where are we going?
All right, so we'll go with mine. So for mine, this is something I saw on TikTok, and I thought it'd be a great one to bring up here. An NFL player coming out of the draft you thought was going to be really good in the league, kind of set the world on fire, turned out to be a bust.
Okay.
So for me, when I thought of that, first player that came to mind, Justin Blackmon.
Oh my God! I thought there was no chance in the world that you would take mine.
I loved Justin Blackmon in college.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, winning on the cover of the NCAA football game, I believe. Yeah, and that's why I kind of started really paying attention to him. He got in the league. I mean, he spent more years in college than in the NFL. That kind of tells you all you need to know. Of course, he had his own issues outside of football, but when Jacksonville took him, I thought he was going to be the next wide receiver, and we just never got to see it. And like I said, when I saw that question, there was a couple of players that came to mind. Justin Blackmon was one. I mean, I'll save my other ones, I guess, after you guys go, so I don't take another one you might have. But Justin Blackmon is the choice for me.
I'll tell you right now, and this is not a joke when I say this. I was so sure. I called Justin. I still have the comments. He came out the year after AJ Green and Julio Jones. And I said, Justin Blackmon will be better than any receiver taken in that draft, including Julio Jones and AJ Green. I said, Justin Blackmon is the next coming of Terrell Owens. He is Terrell Owens 2.0. And he was terrible. He wasn't terrible. It wasn't his talent. He was an idiot. He got suspended for marijuana. Then he got in a fight with a teammate, and he got suspended from the team for contract detrimental. I can't say he was bad. He wasn't a bad player. He's just an idiot.
Sure.
Justin Blackmon's a great example. That Oklahoma State team was just, remember Brandon Whedon?
Yes.
The 28-year-old college athlete. Played for the Yankees, played for the Royals in the MLB, and then goes back to college and becomes a quarterback and gets drafted by the Cowboys. That Oklahoma State team was awesome. Between, Brandon Whedon, Des Bryant, Justin Blackmon, and my best friend's a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. So I'm very familiar with Justin Blackmon and how the Jaguars thought that he was just going to be the next Megatron, and he was not. Obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I have a parliament of players I could name. Tyson Jackson.
Who?
Tyson Jackson.
I
know. Jonathan Baldwin. Do you guys remember the game against the Broncos? The catch that didn't count, where he caught the ball around Brandon Dawkins. Dawkins threw his hands up.
First of all, his name is Brian Dawkins. When you're
Brian
talking about an Eagles legend, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest safeties ever to play the game.
You're right.
Goddamn name right, Chase.
Yes. Did I say Brandon Dawkins?
Yes.
I did. Yeah. Wow. But Brian Dawkins threw his hands up. Jonathan Baldwin caught that ball around him. And when Andy Reid came into town, he said, "Listen, kid, you can't catch the ball." They traded him for San Francisco's first round bust. I can't remember that kid's name. AJ Jenkins, maybe. And both kids got eliminated from both teams before the season started.
I have so many.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from.
So many.
Yeah.
So
Bashad Breeland.
think so? This is what. So you're telling me that you have a really bad pedigree of picking players.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm saying did you think all these players would be great?
I didn't think they would be great, but I thought that they would at least pan out and have good decent NFL careers.
Give me a player that you thought would have been great and that turned out to be a bust. That's what I want to know. Somebody you thought was going to be great. Like here's an easy one, right? Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was talked about as going to be one of the greatest running backs of all time, his greatest collegiate running back to come out. That USC team with Leinart. Matt Leinert's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Bush, I thought was going to be all world. I thought he was the next Marshall Faulk. I was dead wrong about that. He just didn't translate to the NFL. He wasn't a bad player. I can give you busts, but this was a player I was wrong about. Manti?
I thought Manti Te'o would be I thought he would be better than Luke Kuechly.
If I'm going to be honest with you, I knew the moment that kid had a fake girlfriend that he was going to be an NFL bust. I'm not kidding you. If you're that weak-minded that you were crying over a woman that you've never met before in your life and had a fake relationship with a person that's not real, I just knew it would work in the NFL.
So I'll say this, in this, I always kind of, jump on people like, hey, don't talk about shit you don't know about. I have not seen the Manti Te'o documentary. I have not seen it.
It's very good.
I will say, I don't care what's in that documentary. I still to this day thought Manti Te'o was gay and he just was afraid to come out. So he made up that story. That's what I thought.
I don't know about that, and I'm not going to comment on that. But what I will say is I watched the documentary, and I think that he's a very spiritual and very kind-hearted, good person that just wore his heart on his sleeve and was very gullible in the situation. I just knew that, when I think, all right, so let me ask you a question real quick. Who are the best linebackers of all time? Give me 4 of them, 3 of them. I don't care. Best linebackers you've ever seen play football. Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Lawrence Taylor.
Warner.
Luke Kuechly.
Sayal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. These were all killers. If you told me that Lawrence Taylor or Ray Lewis or Junior Seau murdered someone, I wouldn't be shocked one bit. Not one bit. They're all killers. Manti Te'o wasn't a killer. She never was. And I'm not saying you have to be a psychopathic killer to be a good linebacker in football, but you kind of got to have that killer mindset, that killer mentality.
That Ray Lewis mindset.
Yeah. Ray Lewis murdered somebody. Joey Porter.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one for you. What about Charles Rogers? Wide receiver from Michigan.
Yeah.
He went 2nd overall to the Detroit Lions. This guy was incredible in the Big Ten. Unheralded, unheard of. Never got 1,000 yards as a pro. Was cut after his 2nd season, and no team ever picked him up. It's the second overall pick, Charles Rogers.
That's a good one. I did think he was going to be good as well. Another one that came to mind was, I mean, I don't know how, because I think he was somebody that a lot of people thought was going to be good, and some were like, well, Vince Young. Vince Young coming off that Texas USC game, which a lot of people said was probably one of the greatest college football games they had seen. I thought he was going to do a lot more in the NFL than he did. Now, he had the issues with like throwing motion and people trying to fix that. I thought he was going to overcome that and carve out a decent NFL career, and he just never could do. Maybe it was 8-8 Jeff Fisher getting his hands on him, and that ruined him. But yeah, it's just never amounted to much of anything in the NFL.
Here's two that I don't count.
Okay,
I don't count these because I think injuries derailed their career. I think they would have been good if it wasn't for the injuries they sustained. They're both close to home. The obvious one's Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz's 2017, before he tore his ACL, he was on a trajectory to be one of the top quarterbacks in football. I think watching Nick Foles win a Super Bowl and then put a statue of him outside the stadium with the whole Philadelphia being like, well, we got to have the Super Bowl MVP. We got to keep Nick Foles. I think it mentally broke the kid. I think he forced himself to come back early, ended up breaking his back in 2018. A lot of people don't know about that. And then Nick Foles almost took them on another miracle run. And I think he was just mentally gone at that point. Like, he got an argument in 2017 with Darren Sproles and Jason Peters, who were both out for the Super Bowl run. And he had said something to the means of, I almost wish this team would lose because like he almost like he was like not happy they were winning the year we won the Super Bowl. And Darren Sproles, who's like the nicest human being on the planet, almost got in a fist fight with him in rehab. A lot of people don't know about that. Jason Peters hated him. And you're talking about Jason Peters, the bodyguard. That's his nickname in Philadelphia. He's the bodyguard. He would always defend our quarterbacks. Like he would die for Nick Foles. When Carson Wentz on the field, he would always leave the game hurt. He didn't want to be on the field with them. He had made a comment at one of my Verizon stores about, like, one of the reps was bold enough to ask him, like, what's up with the Eagles, man? It's like 2020. He's like, what's up with the Eagles? He's like, well, you watch the games, right? This is what Jason Peters said, verbatim. You watch the games, right? And he goes, yeah, it looks like Carson Wentz is sticking it up the joint. And he goes, well, there's your answer. And he just continued what he was doing. So Carson Wentz, the other one's Kajana Carter. I'm a Penn State guy. Kajana Carter was incredible. I think he had 1,600 yards at Penn State. He was next level. Third play of his first preseason game, he tears his ACL for Cincinnati. Went on to have a 10-year career as a backup running back in the NFL, but never was the same.
Aaron Curry.
Okay.
He defensive, linebacker, defensive end, outside linebacker, whatever. Was going into the draft, and obviously, like I said, as a Chiefs fan, like the combine and all that stuff was always my favorite time of the year. And I was like, man, whatever team passes on Aaron Curry is going to make everybody pay. He got selected by the Seattle Seahawks and didn't do a whole lot of nothing.
Does anybody know what pick Kajana Carter was?
No idea.
He came out in 1995, same year as Steve McNair, Kerry Collins, Tony Baselli. I want you to take a guess. As a running back out of Penn State, what pick he was.
I want to say he was top 5.
Warren Sapp came out that year. Hugh
Was Carter 3?
Hall, Derek Brooks. There were so many Hall of Famers in that draft.
That's a great draft. Was he number 3?
He was number 1 overall.
Wow. Okay.
Last time a running back was drafted number 1 overall. He had more yards in his last year at Penn State than he did for his entire 10-year career.
I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but the Chiefs took one of the biggest draft busts in the 1983 draft. in Todd Blackledge.
Okay.
Passed on John Elway. Didn't pass on John Elway. Obviously, John Elway but passed on Dan Marino.
Yeah. So you guys have the second or third pick that year. That was on the Elway to Marino. I remember watching that. The Chiefs were on that.
Yeah. And Marino talked about it, how
Kelly passed on Jim Kelly.
Passed on Jim Kelly. But Marino talked about how like he talked to like several Chiefs scouts and assistant coaches, and they're all like, hey, like if you're sitting there, we're gonna pick you. And we took Todd Blackledge, the Heisman Trophy winner, and still ranks as one of the biggest busts of all time.
You're right. You're absolutely right. All right, let's move on to the next question, gentlemen. It's a fun bust conversation. Talk about NFL busts. I got one for you, and I'll go over mine next, I guess. So I found this very interesting. I think it's interesting to talk about the salary cap and what you guys prefer and what you think is the best for professional sports. A hard salary cap, a soft salary cap. That's what you see in the NFL and the NBA. Or no salary cap, which you see in Major League Baseball. Which one would you prefer of the three? Major League Baseball has none. They just do whatever they want. And NFL and NBA, they have a lot of regulations and rules to kind of cheat the salary cap. The NBA calls it a hard salary cap. It's not a hard salary cap. It's not at all. The NFL salary cap's an absolute joke. That would be the definition of a soft salary cap. You can just translate your money into bonus money and it doesn't count against the cap. Like, it's absurd what the NFL can do. Like, they just, if you have an owner that's willing to spend a ton of money, I am in favor of a hard salary cap. I know it might suck for players to have to leave your organization, but it's the best thing for parity in sports. But I'll put it this way, right? And I'll give my opinion first, and I would love to hear yours. I also think in something like Major League Baseball, it would be fine if they had a floor. They don't have a floor. You got teams like Oakland and Pittsburgh and Cincinnati Florida, Miami, spending $40 million in payroll. And then you got the Dodgers spending $270. Yeah. It's just, that's not parity. And no matter what, like there's something that my dad used to say when I was younger. And he said, there's three things that you can count on in life: death, taxes, and the Marlins losing their best players to the Red Sox and the Yankees. Yeah. It was absurd. They would draft people and they would make them into superstars, and then they would go play for different teams. Do you know how many great players were drafted by the Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins at the time, that went on to play for other teams? Gary Sheffield, Dontrell, the D-Train, Dontrell Willis, Josh Beckett, and Miguel Cabrera. They're littered across Major League Baseball.
Christian Yelich.
Hanley Ramirez, Christian Yelich. Actually, it's a funny story. I think that a few of them weren't drafted by them, but they were sent to them as far as prospects for some of their trades that they made. But the point being is they became pros as Florida Marlins, and that's for another day. Mm-hmm. I am for a hard salary cap. I'm for parity in sports. I think every team deserves a chance to be able to compete in sports. Now, how you spend your money in that salary cap is obviously up to you. But I'm for a hard salary cap. That's my opinion. I'll sit back.
I can agree with that. And interesting, because I did look at this, I think like last week or something for a podcast episode. But looking at the top spenders in Major League Baseball, like the only ones in the top 10 that you could say are really doing well with their high payroll are the Phillies and the Braves. A lot of the other teams in the top 10, you're looking at Yankees, Mets, Angels, with all of their issues and the money that they spend, they can't even sniff the playoffs. So I do agree that having no cap is like fun as a fan, especially if you're a fan of one of those teams that spend a lot of money. seeing big name after big name come through is fun. But I do think baseball definitely needs a floor because it gives cheap owners an out to be cheap and then, sit there raking in money and like the collective bargaining and all that, not putting out in the team, and then that just creates hatred from the fan base. But I do think that a hard salary cap is the best because, it forces teams, and they know what that hard cap limit is. They have to stick to it. No way working around it, no trickery or anything like that. And it puts everybody on the closer of a level playing field. So I would agree with you. And also Steven named some other busts, but that might be for another week. Busts that we knew were going to be busts in the NFL. But
Fair.
yeah, I agree with you. I'll go hard salary cap.
Jamarcus and Manziel were not surprising. Trent Richardson was.
Yeah. Eddie Lacy was.
Yeah. I'm with Gene. I'm for a hard salary cap. I'm not, I guess a soft one would be fine like they do in the NFL. But I mean, as far as baseball goes, since I've been alive, I'm 35 years old. Everybody always talked about it's the Yankees, the Yankees, the Yankees, the Yankees, the Yankees, the Yankees. That's why everybody's a fan of the Yankees. That's why there's Yankees fans all over the United States, because it got so ridiculous. They were like the Harlem Globetrotters of the MLB because nobody else cared about anybody else but the New York Yankees. And that's because there's not a strict, there's not a hard salary cap where, you have big market teams like the Yankees and whoever who will go out and spend money on the players because everybody loves them. And then, like you mentioned, you got the Florida or Miami Marlins who will just dish them out and not care about the fans, only care about raking in the hot dog money and parking.
Well, fun question for you guys. I want you guys to try to guess the top 5 payrolls, 2023 payrolls in baseball this year.
I mean, like I said, since I looked it up last week, I might remember the top 5, but I think
I don't think you'll get all 5.
Houston?
Houston's like, yeah, Houston's not there.
Really?
It's the I think Mets.
Mets are 1.
Yankees.
Yankees are 2.
I believe it's the Dodgers.
Dodgers are 6.
Okay, Dodgers just outside. Okay. Angels.
Angels are 8.
Okay, so I completely missed with the Angels. Well, I think aren't the Phillies top 5?
These are 5.
Okay.
All right, so we're missing 3 and 4, right?
3 and 4, yeah.
3 and 4. 3 is pretty easy. 4 is super surprising. I think 3 is very easy. I would have guessed 3 right away.
St. Louis?
No, St. Louis isn't close. Let me see where they're at.
Oh,
7.
the Padres. Padres are paying everybody under the sun.
Number 3. Number 4 is rather tough. I don't think you would think about this.
4 was.
Give you a hint. They have $96 million on injured reserve. By the second most in all baseball. Behind the Angels, who have $147 million on IR.
Yikes. It's not the Rangers.
That is it. That's the Texas Rangers. Number 3. Or number 4. 200.
Yeah, that is surprising, yeah.
So it's funny because the top 5 teams in baseball as far as spending were the Mets, Yankees, Padres, Rangers, and Phillies. The bottom 5 teams in baseball and spending. Now, keep in mind, here's the top 5. $343 million, 200 for the Mets, $279 million for the Yankees, $256 for the Padres, $251 for the Rangers, $245 for the Phillies, $240 for the Dodgers, who are 6th, $237 for the Astros, who are 7th. I think that's relevant. Now, I'll tell you why in a minute. The bottom teams in baseball, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Oakland A's at $62 million. 31 million on their
high.
31 million on their roster though, which is
Okay.
half of that. 16 million is retained money. Retainers, just to be clear. 68 million on the Pirates. Once again, 17 million retainer money, 15 million on injured reserve, only 30 million on the roster.
That's a fourth. That is absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah. And Pittsburgh has a great stadium too.
I mean, it's actually 10% of what the Mets opening day roster was without IR.
That's also crazy. The gap between the Mets and the Yankees is like 70 million. That's crazy.
27 and 28 show you that you can make this happen without $71 million payroll. Baltimore Orioles, best record in baseball, or second best record in baseball. 79 million, Tampa Bay Rays, third best record in baseball.
Two teams that know how to draft.
Then you got the Guardians at 91, the Nationals at 93, the Royals at 96, the Reds at 96, and the Miami Marlins breaking $100 million this year. Proud of them. Proud of those guys.
And then watch next year, they'll be probably worse in the league. Because it always seems like when they have success, then they got to sell everybody off and start it all over again.
That is absolutely insane. I've never thought to look at that. And that's just insane that the number one team is almost at $500 million. And the last team isn't even anywhere near 100 million.
No.
Well, at least with the A's, we understand. They're trying to move the team.
Well, the Royals are trying to get a new stadium. So
I still think the coolest thing ever was the reverse boycott of the Oakland A's. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Chase, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The Oakland A's sold out their stadium. It went absolutely ballistic for a team that was basically tanking. They reverse boycott. Like, you want to move us? This is what we could do if you actually put a winner on the field. And they just sold out the stadium and went nuts. It was pandemonium.
And then the team go on a winning streak too?
Yes, they did. I mean, home field advantage. All right, so a little sidebar question. In what sport does home field or home ice or home court advantage mean the most?
Football. I'm the wrong person to ask that.
I know you're a dead set football guy. I don't think that's the answer, though.
And he's also Arrowhead, because Arrowhead has
Arrowhead is it's the loudest stadium in the world. So
I get it. I don't think that's the answer, though. Like, I'll tell you why. There's a lot of in football. There's about 7 different surfaces that you can play on, right? Like, whether it be like natural grass or like this imitation grass or turf. Like, there's about 7 different type of materials that you can play on. I think that basketball, there's nothing like shooting the ball on your home court rim. It just looks different, feels different. I think that if you look at the NBA playoffs, and this happens so often, the role players play out of their mind at home, but they can't play at all on the road. And I think that has a lot to do with they're not seeing the volume in shooting that the stars are seeing to be able to get adjusted to the home court of the other team. I think, and I will say this, right? In baseball, it's probably almost irrelevant, except the bank. If you watch those Phillies playoff games, it's just different, man. I would never want to be a road team playing in that stadium. It's crazy. I think that the Phillies fans are better than the Eagles fans. I said this last week. I think they're better overall fans. Eagles fans most of them are morons. They have no idea what they're watching. They don't know what, like, you can ask them what a cover 2 or a cover 3 or a nickel defense is, or dime or quarters. They have no idea. They have no friggin' clue. Whereas a baseball fan, a Philadelphia Phillies baseball fan, they can give you the lineup front to back. all 9 of them, where they play, how they hit, how many home runs they have. It's just a totally different fan base. It's crazy.
Well, it also speaks to kind of the strategy involved in football. It's like you got to get deep into that to really understand every little nuance of defense. Where baseball, it's like if you said like, "What's a hit and run?" and you could kind of fake your way and come around to an answer that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or shift or something like that. It's very easy to kind of pick up. But yeah, like you said, if you went to a lot of stadiums, it was like, "What's a cover 3?" They'd probably be like, "I don't know, cover 3 wide receivers or something," and just be like, "What are you talking about?" So I just think that the two sports are kind of lend themselves to that kind of knowledge, not necessarily being there with the average fan.
Okay.
Would you call baseball a sophisticated sport?
No, I don't think it's that sophisticated. I do think the hardest thing to do in all professional sports is to hit a baseball. I believe that. I believe that that's the hardest thing to do.
Well, because I've never thought about this until Kyle said something about it, but you're right. You go to a baseball game and there's so many people in the crowd who have, the lineup sheets and are filling them out and watching and counting the pitches and looking at the ERAs and you go to a football game and it's just people cheering if somebody gets hit or catches a ball. So that's the only reason I asked that is just because I've never known. I mean, you won't see somebody at a football game sitting down analyzing the game like you do at baseball.
That's why I don't go to football games. I'll go to a baseball game. I hate going to football games. I said this multiple times on the show. And Chase, I know you're a season ticket holder. I know you go to a lot of Chiefs games.
Yeah.
It's a great stadium to go to. I can't be around it. Like, I listen to people constantly talk about like why things happen or this guy sucks or whatever. Like, it's not even his guy. That's not even his zone. That's not even where he's supposed to be at. It's just like not understanding what's happening. I can't listen to it. I can't listen to the idiocracy. Moronville. I can't go there. They're just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
What defense were they running? You think he sucks? What defense were they running? Man, what? Was it cover 0? Was it cover 2 man? What were they playing? Cover 1? What were they playing? Explain to me what they were playing. Zone. Okay, what type of zone? Was it a cover 6, cover 4, cover 2, a Tampa 2? Like, what's a Tampa 2? Why do you know that? Shut up then, bro. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling listening to people talk football.
Mm-hmm. So I like how like NFL Plus has like the all 22. If you show that footage to a lot of football fans, they'd be completely lost on what's going on. All they'll see is like kind of what you said. A wide receiver catches the ball. They'll see somebody in coverage who should have been there, at least in their mind. Where I know, Gene, that you said you watch like every game, all 22. If you see it, you'll be like, oh, linebacker was supposed to be in a certain zone. He didn't get over. It's on him. Where somebody will be like, how come the safety didn't come down and get him? It's like the safety's got another zone to cover, and he's doing his job. And that's kind of the kind of things that a lot of fans won't pick up on. But so baseball, the hardest thing is probably like, what pitch was that? And you can just look up really quickly. Oh, that was a changeup. Simple.
It's so tough. For me, it's very easy to understand. It's so easy for me to notice when someone misses an assignment. Like if a guy like bites on a play action,
mm-hmm.
or if a guy loses contain on a counter or a reverse or anything of that nature. If he loses contain on a read option, it's very easy to see that, right? Like this is the guy that made the mistake. Whereas the average football player or person that watches the game has no fucking clue. Like none. Like, you know, the most popular defense I see ran in football now is that Brian Flores nickel double mug or nickel double A, where you have 6 guys on the line of scrimmage on passing downs. You're putting both linebackers in the A gap, And the A gap is over the center, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not, the A gap is between the center and the left guard and the center and the right guard, if you just didn't understand. But they're putting both linebackers over the center, and they're playing a wide 9 stance where the defensive lineman is spread out to where the edge rushers are getting the outside edge on the tackles. That's what they're doing. But that's such a popular defense. But people don't realize that what they're running out of double mug, what they're running out of double A. They're running zones. They're running drops. People are dropping out. People are running in. They're blitzing all 6. They're running cover 0. There's a million things that they're running out of that formation. That's why it's so tough for an NFL quarterback to understand what's coming at them. They have to look at a guy's eyes and know whether he's blitzing or not.
Yeah.
And teams will see this, Kyle. They will see this to where they're like, okay, that guy's blitzing. What was the funniest thing that you've seen in all preseason? Aaron Rodgers telling the guy from the Carolina Panthers, you're not blitzing, back up. Or you're not coming, back up. In the preseason, just tell him right to his face in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
People have no idea. None. But back to salary cap that we're talking about. I guess we all agree with hard cap. Yeah. If you had to pick between soft cap and no cap, what would you pick?
Soft cap.
I'll go no cap.
Yeah, I think no cap works kind of like you said. You have to put a floor in, though. Force teams to spend to a certain amount. That way you close the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Because baseball's no cap. It's like the haves are really having a good time. And then the teams that are cheap or just look terrible on the field year in and year out. And it's 162 games. That's a lot for a fan base to turn up for when they know going in, we're not even trying tonight. Night in and night out. Like that's rough.
I don't think the reason I say no cap over soft cap is because the difference between no cap and soft cap is a soft cap, people can just turn everything into bonus money. They can basically manipulate the salary cap and allow it to work to their advantage by having their owners spend more money. Whereas no cap, it's like that's exactly what we're doing. We don't need to manipulate. I think it should be either hard cap or no cap. Soft cap allows, I guess, a weird, like the NFL is the weirdest soft cap you'll ever see. Like they kick money down the road, they kick the bucket. Their roster has so many people on it, and they sign people off the practice squad, and then they cut them, and it doesn't count against the salary cap. It's so absurd what the NFL can do as far as their soft cap. Now, the NBA is a little weird. They have a hard cap, but they have bird rights. They have veteran minimums. They have mid-level exceptions. It's just different, right? I get it. It allows you to not be able to stock up teams to the way that Miami Heat did when they got LeBron, Wade, and Bosh to sign. They basically, nobody realizes how they did that. Everyone's like, how the hell did they do that? Well, they basically cut everybody. And they had 3 guys on their roster, and then they signed a bunch of mid-level exceptions and veteran minimums because they were already at their cap, so they could do that. But no one understood how they did it at first. They're like, how did they have that? We're going to have 2 max players back then until they learned how to cheat the system. I just don't like a system and that allows you to cheat it. I think you should have to stay. I also don't think there should be max contracts. If somebody wants to spend 80% of their maximum of their salary cap on one player, by all means, but make it a hard cap. I think the best thing for sports would be no max contracts and a hard salary cap. Think about how fun that would be. Like, how much is Patrick Mahomes really worth? If you have a $230 million salary cap and it's a hard cap, no bonus money, and there's 52 guys on your roster, you have to divvy up $230 million between 52 guys. How much is Patrick Mahomes really worth? Chase, I'm asking you.
50 million.
50 million. That means you have to figure out a way to divvy up 180 over 51 guys. He's the best in the world. That's the reason I used him as an example. But like in a sport like the NBA, How much is Giannis worth? Think about it. Do you want other guys on your team? All right, let's move over to Chase's question. Chase, I'll read it for you if you like.
Oh yeah, my bad, because I didn't have it pulled up.
Is Colorado capable of a BCS championship? Is that in the next 3 years? Is that what you're asking? Like next 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And then is Georgia still in it without Bowers? So we'll do both. Let's knock out Colorado. And we'll ask, are they capable of a BCS championship in, let's say, the next 3 years? Because when did they move to the Big 12, right?
Yep. Next season.
Next season they move.
Mhm.
So they're going to go into I think this year they have no chance.
Right.
I think next year they have very little chance because Texas is not going to get worse. Arch is going to start for the next year when Quinn Ewers gets out. Oklahoma is not going to get worse. I don't think they have any chance of hanging with them this year and next year.
Well, don't those two move to the SEC next year?
Oh, they do. You're right. You're right. They could. So you're asking if they have a chance to win the BCS championship or make the playoff?
Be anywhere near, make the playoffs or win it.
I think
what is their ceiling? What is their ceiling?
I think they can make the playoff 2 years from now. Not this year, not next year.
Yep.
I think they can make the college football playoff 2 years from now, which kind of is weird because Shador won't be there and Travis won't be there 2 years from now.
Will Prime be
there? No, I don't think so, Chase. I don't. But if he does stay there and continues to recruit the way he is,
yeah,
I think Prime ends up going to Florida State. I really believe that. I think they find a way to make it work. I think he'll go to a big program. Huge program, has unlimited resources. Right now, he's building a shit program. I'm not saying Boulder, Colorado is the worst place in the world to coach, but it's definitely not Eugene, Oregon. It's definitely not like Georgia. It's definitely not Tuscaloosa. You know what I mean? So, like, I think he'll end up building the program up. I think he leaves when Shador leaves. I think he gives him 2 years, and I think he's gone. So, I guess to answer your question the right way, I would say no.
Is he staying in college, or do you think he goes to the NFL?
I don't think he goes to the NFL.
He seems like a college type of coach because he's going to be so great at recruiting. Because if you have Dion talking to your kid, like, who wouldn't want to go play for primetime? Whereas the NFL, I think it's tougher for him probably to connect with the egos in the NFL, and I think he'll just I don't think he would thrive in the NFL necessarily as a head coach.
I don't think he'd thrive listening to anyone. I think he thrives on the fact that he has control of the program.
That's a good point.
I don't think he answers to boosters either. So I think that's a tough way for him to go to like a Georgia or an Alabama because like those guys are controlled by their boosters. Like you have to pander towards the people that are milking money into that program. Who was it that just went on TV recently and was like saying that they're basically crying for more money so they can compete with Georgia? Forget who it was. There was a team that went on, maybe it was South Carolina. I don't know who it was, but there was a team that went on TV and was like saying, well, Georgia's buying a ton of players. Like, I want to compete with that. So we need more money.
I think I remember that quote, but I can't remember who it was.
By the way, bottom in the 9th, 5-4 Texas right now. Just want to
could go up 2-0.
Yeah, winning both games at Texas.
Yeah. Well, I will say I guess I kind of agree. Depends on how long Dion's at Colorado. Like if he's gone kind of on Gene's timeline in 2 years when Shadur's gone, then no. But if he was there for like 5 years, yeah, I think he would definitely make a playoff. I mean, I don't know if he would win one because, Georgia's probably not going anywhere. Ohio State's still going to be in the conversation, Michigan. But he'll make it interesting, for sure.
So is the loss of Georgia's quarterback is that going to jeopardize their season?
Oh, it's their tight end. You're talking about Brock Bowers.
Tight end. I'm sorry.
So but he's the best tight end in the nation by far.
Yeah.
Like he's George Kittle 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and it does matter. I don't think Carson Beck is the leader and what Stetson Bennett was. I don't think that defense is anywhere near what it's been for the last 2 years. There's no Jalen Carter on that defense. There's no Kobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Keely Ringo, Nolan Smith. Who's the kid that went number 1 overall? Travon Walker. There's none of those guys that are on that team. They'll have a couple guys that go in the first round, but these are all like staple college football defenders. There's also no James Cook. There's no George Pickens. There's no guys on that roster that are like Brock Bowers. Last year, I had Darnell Washington. Bowers went out. Washington was drafted in the 3rd round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6'7", 300 pounds, runs like a deer at the tight end position. Guy's just different. He played college football last year. They don't have that this year. They have a running back who's elite. But other than that, and this is nothing against Georgia, and I have nothing against Georgia as a whole. I don't think they should be number 1. I think it's an absolute joke that a team that basically beat Vandy by 17, and Vandy's been like the ass of the SEC for years.
Mm-hmm.
They got a senior running back in DeJuan Edwards who is unbelievable, and outside of that, I don't think Georgia's that special. Just an opinion. Everyone has them. I think Georgia slips up before the college. I wouldn't be surprised. This sounds crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia doesn't make the college football playoff.
I mean, because for me, the one thing that kind of works in Georgia's favor a lot of these years, the schedule just isn't that great. So a lot of times they can kind of limp into 11 wins. So if you're going to say that you wouldn't be surprised, where would you see them slipping up?
I think this is the year where you can say that. I don't think you could say that in previous years. Georgia went through the SEC when it was really good the last few years. Auburn has been terrible. South Carolina's terrible. The Zoo isn't that great this year. They got Ole Miss and Tennessee. I think they might lose at Tennessee. I think Old Rocky Top. Actually, they'll play Tennessee in Florida. That won't be at Tennessee. They play they play Florida. Never mind. They play Florida in Jacksonville. They're going to play at Rocky Top on November 18th, and I think they lose that game, and I think they lose the SEC championship game.
Okay.
So I think that Georgia doesn't make the college football playoff. I think the best 4. I think this is a wild year for college football, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're being completely honest, the Pac-12 is the best conference in football. Either them or the Big Ten. In the Pac-12, you have USC, you got Washington, Oregon, Utah. Oregon State's been good. A lot of good teams.
Mm-hmm. I really like Washington.
I really liked Washington until I watched them fold like a lawn chair versus Oregon, and Oregon basically gifted them that game.
That's true.
They folded like a lawn chair this past Saturday. What do you think, Chase? Have you been following Georgia and Brock Bowers?
I have. I was right there with you. That was kind of be like my bold prediction. And I guess it doesn't sound that bold, but it wasn't just the loss of Brock Bowers. It was the loss of Brock Bowers plus the way they've been playing. And the fact that they've been doing what, not closing games out, only beating teams by 10 points. And I was going to have them missing the playoffs as well.
It's funny. If Graham Mertz didn't stink, and I have no faith in Graham Mertz, none, I would pick Florida to beat them this week. I would. I really would.
Mm-hmm.
Graham Mertz is just not good. And I think that he'll end up throwing the ball to Georgia a couple times.
I see that.
He's just not good. Yeah, you know how many years I watched Graham Mertz throw the ball to the other team in the Big Ten when he played for Wisconsin? And now he transferred to Florida and he's in Billy Napier's system and he's good. No, bro, I'm not buying into that bullshit. I'm not. I watched him go play a third-string quarterback at Utah and get absolutely annihilated. Pass. Hard pass. What do you guys got in tonight's NLCS game 1?
I mean, I feel like you got to go Phillies, but some of this Diamondbacks team is like, I don't even know what to expect from them. I did not think they were gonna. Well, we know how the Dodgers are in the playoffs. But I did not think that they were gonna not let alone beat them, but sweep them. I think the Diamondbacks are coming with a lot of momentum right now.
Phillies.
But I'll go with the Phillies. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, wouldn't be surprised if the Diamondbacks.
I just can't understand how a lineup with Tommy Pham batting 3 is a lineup that's going to compete with the Phillies. And listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. They scare me too. Any team scares me at this point. If you made it to the NLCS, I don't care who you are. They got a stud in Corbin Carroll that leads off for them. You have to get him out. He has to stay off the bases. You want to talk about a guy, he's baby Acuna, right? Like this guy had 55 stolen bases and 25 home runs this year. He's just that good. He's a very good player. Kettle Marte can leave the ballpark at any time.
Yep.
Christian Walker's probably been their best hitter. I think that their lineup just isn't deep, right? When you get to the bottom of that lineup, you have a lot of outs down there. You have a lot of guys that just should be outs. So for the Phillies, they really have to focus on getting that top 4 out for Arizona. Christian Walker, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's been talked about on Philadelphia radio all day. Christian Walker, Tommy Pham, and Kettle Marte all bat over 400 versus Zach Wheeler for their career.
Wow.
The
Phillies do not have one guy that bats over 350 versus Zach Gallen.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting matchup. Wheeler versus Gallen tonight. The Phillies I don't say steal. They're minus 175 favorites for the game. But if the Phillies win this one versus Gallen, I think they match up really well, continuing to go down the line. The Philadelphia Phillies are not deep in their rotation. They are two-arm rotation. 2. The top of the rotation. If you look at what the Phillies have done in the playoffs this year, it's nothing short of, it should be illegal what they did. They've basically had 3 starters start in 2 playoff series. And Ranger Suarez basically is not getting to the 3rd time in the lineup. You're getting Wheeler and Nola, and Wheeler and Nola. That's what you're getting. And if one of those guys is an off night, you better hope the bats pick you up.
Looking for them. Pretty good lineup behind them.
Very, very good lineup. That lineup does not hit well off Zach Gallen. Schwarber's 1 for 7. Turner's 4 for 18. Harper's 4 for 12. Bohm's 0 for 5. Stott's 2 for 6. Realmuto's only seen him 3 times, 0 for 3. Castellanos 1 for 4. Rojas has never seen him. And I always say this in baseball. It's the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th time you see this guy when you can start hitting them. And when in reality, Zach Gallen, they've seen him so infrequently that they don't know his stuff. Whereas with Wheeler, it's totally different, right? Like Wheeler's been in the league for a long time. So like their career versus Wheeler, like Christian Walker's 9 for 17. Like he rakes off of Wheeler. 9 for 17. You guys realize how retarded that is in MLB baseball? Tommy Pham's 5 for 11. Kettle Marte's 4 for 10. They all have home runs off them. It's a game where I think it's gonna be a really good game tonight. 6-5 Phillies is where my prediction goes, but just wanted to hear your opinions.
I could see a score. Something like, I mean, since we were talking about baseball, because there was a question I had about it. Because this is something I've been thinking about with talking about the Dodgers once again. But is it me or the fact that the only World Series they've gotten out of this was a shortened year? Isn't it kind of a failure?
It's 100% a failure for the Dodgers.
Okay, that's what I've been wondering. Because I know a lot of teams are like, oh, we got our World Series, so everything's good. But it's like the names you brought in, the money you spent. A lot of people thought the Dodgers were going to be like some 3-5 year juggernaut. in a 60-game season is the only one you were able to pull through and win it all. Just, yeah, I just don't get it.
Can I tell you why I think it's a super? So I want to go back to the Phillies in 2008. They won the World Series. And in 2009 and 2010, we were real satisfied, right? Won the World Series. That's okay. We lost in 09. We lost in 2000. We won the World Series. We're not used to that. Looking back at that team in 2023, to think they only got one, it's a failure.
Yeah.
Rollins, Utley, Howard, Burrell. With that pitching rotation that they had, that pitching rotation in 2011 should have won them a World Series alone. Halladay, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, like what?
Yeah.
Roy Oswalt. I remember they had the pictures of they won 102 games that year, and then they lost to the Cardinals in the NLDS, kind of like the Braves lost to us. But they had the pictures. It was Fat Joe, which was Joe Blanton, and the Terror Squad. And it was Halladay, Hamels, Lee, and Oswalt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the Braves in the 90s.
Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox.
They could only win one World Series. Crazy.
To think about having 3 Hall of Famers like that and only get one. It's just different. Any final comments before we wrap up?
Great show.
Fun talking sports for you guys.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely.
We hope to have a fourth with us next week. We're missing our fourth wheel tonight, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. When you got me, Chase, Kyle talking sports, it's going to get fun, barbershop style sports. But that's all we got for you tonight in the Cheap Seats podcast. I'm gonna go get myself a Steve Weiser and get ready for the Philadelphia Phillies in about 20 minutes, opening pitch to take game 1 of the NLCS. I'm ready for Phillies Rangers in the World Series. I don't think anyone in the world outside of the state of Arizona wants to see the Diamondbacks in the World Series. Like, do you really want to? Are you turning your TV on to see Christian Walker and Tommy Pham? Or are you turning it on to see Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Zach Wheeler? Come on, guys. You got to be.
Look, Corbin Carroll would be the draw for the Diamondbacks, but yeah, I mean, outside of Arizona, not a lot of people are.
Kyle, I was
I
doing
know.
pitch, I left him out intentionally.
I know.
I don't want to see the Rangers get to another World Series and lose it. But I definitely don't want to see the Houston Astros go. So, I mean, for the Rangers to go and lose again, that's fine. So.
Well, do you want to know something that the Phillies, the Rangers, and the Astros all have in common? They all have one thing in common. They all won 90 games on the dot. They were all 90 and 72, all 3 teams.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
Now, the Arizona Diamondbacks were 84 and 78. You want to talk about the epitome of sneaking into the playoffs?
Yes. Playing
with house money. They swept the Brewers. They swept the Dodgers. And they won the last 2 games of the season. They are essentially on a 7-game winning streak. Let's end that tonight. Let's end it tonight. That's all we got here for you tonight on the Cheap Seats podcast. I am the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. That is CR Media. Chase, our resident wrestling host, podcast creator. And then we got the Prince of Production, Kyle Edwards, a.k.a. chomping at the bit. This is the Cheap Seats podcast, and we are signing out.